It's a real pleasure that you've all come along. Thank you all very, very much for coming. And I wanted to try and tell a story about the last Olympics I competed at. If you cast your minds back to September 2000. For those who remember, you probably remember watching Redgrave getting his 5th consecutive gold medal. Who remembers watching that one? Okay, fine. I wasn't in that one. He was in the 4-man boat, I was in the 8-man boat. And so I'm going to talk a bit about that. The morning of our Olympic final was another early morning. We reversed our boat onto the start line. And we had 5 minutes to go before the starter was going to press the buzzer to send us off for the biggest 5.5 minutes of our lives. All eyes on the red traffic light. As the red traffic light faded out, we were going to blast off harder and faster than we had ever done before in our lives, giving this first 500 meters everything we had. But at some point, we had this moment of clarity where we realized that for the previous 7 years, we had been doing the same thing. We'd come home from World Championships or Olympics, bitterly disappointed, so we do the same thing the following year, but even harder. And you all know the saying, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And I think there are some very simple principles around there that I want to try and talk about today. The first one, about being really clear on what's most important and focusing on what is most important. It amazes me how often people don't actually have clarity about what they're trying to achieve. And in fact, how many businesses talk about how complex everything is and how difficult things are, and they use complexity as an excuse for a lack of clarity. And actually, if we're not clear on what it is we're trying to achieve, then how are people in your businesses, how are they spending their time? And having the clarity of what's most important so we can then make sure the stuff we're doing is taking us in the direction we want to go is I think, pretty critical. The second principle is around focusing on performance so that we can get results. Now, I think most of us, very often we use the words results and performance to mean the same thing. From a sports perspective, they're different. And I think those two concepts are pretty simple and obvious. But actually, it's really hard to do. It's very, very simple concepts, but really hard to do. And I think one of the things that makes it easier to do is actually getting the right help and support from the people around us. So how do we actually work effectively together so we can do the simple stuff we should do? Gandhi had the saying, be the change you want to see in the world. If we wanted things to be different, we had to be different. It had to come down to us as a group of individuals. But we couldn't actually control whether we won or not, because we had no control over how fast the Americans, the Russians, the Germans, the Dutch, or anyone else was going to go. All we could do was control how fast our boat went. That's the only thing we could control. So we started asking this question, will it make the boat go faster? And the idea was to challenge every single thing we did as to whether it was taking us in the direction we wanted to go in. And with the right people involved, if we just could set up this learning environment where we're willing to change, then we thought we could go faster and faster and faster. And people often ask, what does it feel like when you cross the line? Well, Matt going to say, I don't really remember. But 15 or 20 minutes later, when we got these, the realization dawned of what was achievable. What a bunch of people who had never done anything before, what we could achieve if we worked about it in the right way. I don't know if you want to have a look and pass it around. Pass it around by all means. I will get it back, obviously.
They're winding it up now. The Australians are coming back. It's 50 metres to the line, but we're going to do it. We're going to hold on. Go boys! Go boys! Here come the Australians, but it is gold! Gold for Great Britain! Olympic champions! Olympic champions here on Lake Penn.